Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. For those familiar or new to the podcast, I'm Sarah, and thanks for joining me. So today we've got a special episode lined up for you. In this episode, we'll have a roundtable with both buyer and seller for one deal to peek behind the scenes of all the action, logistics, and emotion that fuels a singular deal. Together, their views will give us an in-depth look at what it's really like to buy and sell an online business with Empire Flippers. Our seller is Wilson de Santos. He's made a 7-figure exit of his Fba business this year to Thrasio. To many, Thrasio hardly needs an introduction, but for those who don't know, the well-known Fba acquirer has rapidly grown to become a $10 billion company thanks to their ability to scale acquired Fba businesses. Kevin Flaherty, Acquisitions Manager at Thrasio, joins us to share the buyer perspective on this particular deal. Wilson and Kevin walk us through every step of their buyer and seller journey. They'll explain what the process of listing your business for sale involves, what kind of Fba business catches the eyes of aggregators, and how to deal with intense competition on deals. If you're thinking of buying or selling an Fba business, and you definitely do not want to miss this special behind-the-scenes episode. Through each buyer and seller's personal experience, you'll be able to walk away with some unique insight for your future exit or acquisition. I don't want to give away too much just yet, though, so let's dig in the interview, see what Wilson and Kevin have to share, and then we'll get rolling. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. Really excited for today's episode. Special occasion. We've got a little roundtable going today. We've got Kevin Flaherty from Thrasio, which hardly needs an introduction. Most people here are familiar with Thrasio. And then Wilson de Santos. He's an Fba seller who exited his business on our marketplace. So how are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Good stuff. All right. So, of course, most of the audience is fairly new to you guys. So to kick things off, Wilson, let's start with you. Where are you calling in from in the world?
I'm calling from Toronto, Canada.
Toronto. Awesome. I can't imagine. I'm guessing it's getting a little bit cold at this point.
Yes, we had warm weather in the beginning of the month, and everybody was hoping that Halloween would be a warm Halloween, but no, things are changing.
Okay, well, fingers crossed from you that it doesn't become too icy too soon.
Exactly.
Kevin, are you calling from somewhere as cold or from somewhere else?
Likely just as cold, calling from the great state of Rhode Island, so on the east coast of the U.S.
Wow, okay. So yeah, you guys are both ready to start freezing here the next couple months. All right. I'm feeling kind of bad calling from France. It's not as cold here, but I'm sure we'll get there soon. Well, awesome. So just to kick things off, we're here to tell a story of one particular exit and acquisition between both parties here. I figured it's probably safe to start with Wilson, seeing as, you exited your business. So let's kick things off and talk about the business that you sold with us. So in order to paint a picture for our audience, why don't we cover the basics about the business that you listed for sale on our marketplace? So things like niche, average monthly net profits and revenue, age of the business, things like that. Let's start there.
Sure. My story, it's a very typical Amazon FBA story in terms of 3 years ago, I started the business. So it was a business that was in business for 3 years. The niche from the get-go, and was a business that stayed very loyal to its category. So it's in a pet category and was very attached to one specific problem. And at the end of the day, we had about 3 SKUs to solve a problem in the pet category. And we were very consistent in terms of the branding, in terms of the investment, and how we actually operate the business for 3 years. So we didn't branch out to other categories, so it's very specific. In terms of revenue, the business, when we decided to make the decision to sell the business was growing exponentially. pretty much every 6 months, the revenue would grow 30, 40%. So every 6 months. Every new year after the Q4, the sales of the business would come up with a new benchmark, which most of the time would be 60 to 70% greater than the previous year. So the business is growing and is growing rapidly. In terms of the profitability goes as well. So in terms of our profit margin was around 35 to 40% profit margin. And the monthly profit was around, for the last 6 months, was going from 50K to 70K a month profit.
Wow. You know, when you say that, what comes to mind, as we've had different guests on the show, is like, I know that you were in a great position with the business growing so fast, but I mean, to have the business essentially shapeshift every 6 months from a financial perspective, I mean, certainly from your end, that must have been tough sometimes, right? To keep on top of the inventory and the growth and the changes. I know it's a good problem, but certainly not easy, right?
You got it. Yeah. The stress that comes with a business that's growing that rapidly, it's brutal because every new order, I was doubling the number of orders because I was always trying to get enough inventory for 3-4 months. But then I would fall short and I would put way more units and the whole complexity that comes with that in terms of the logistics and the promotions and all of that. Yeah, it's an amazing problem to have, right? But nevertheless, it brings the stress with it for sure.
What amazes me is every time I talk to FBA sellers, I'm always so floored by that. The ability to, you're in a great position and the business is growing, but it's keeping you up at night as well. How am I going to manage these inventory changes? When is enough? When is it the right amount? I've been told time and time again, it can be kind of like a fun process by some people who love inventory management. But to me, I think if I were to put myself I'm scared. I'm scared hearing it.
It is. And one of the reasons, even talking about logistics, one of the reasons why I start the selling process early, like about May, June, it's because I want the new owner of the brand to have enough time to get ready for Q4. And I knew that this Q4 would be the biggest ever for the brand. So I want to also be mindful of giving enough time for the new owner to adjust the inventory levels for the Q4. That's how rapidly things were going.
Wow. Well, you kind of hinted towards my next question. So you were setting the business up. You're kind of thinking about the buyer in the next phases. Can you walk me through the period of time where you were thinking about selling? Like, how did selling first even come on your radar?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, you're so into the business. For me, the natural path was I look around, and this was a mom and pop business, literally. So I was doing all the operations of the business. And my wife was helping with bookkeeping. My daughter was helping with social media and a little bit of PPC. And we are running this business. And now it's a business that is passing the $1 million mark for revenue and is growing. And that was the moment that I thought, I think the business outgrew me. And now I have a choice to make. I can hire people, grow my team, and reinvest the revenue again and double in size. Or I can pivot, or I can give the brand to someone that's reputable, that has the knowledge and the expertise to bring the brand and the product forward. And that's where the thought of selling came to my mind. I was talking to someone that went for retail. So that person had a product for is kind of a similar category as mine. And she was selling her product in retail stores. And I was talking to her about maybe I should go to retail as well, so branch off Amazon. And that's what she also kind of planted a seed, saying, okay, why don't you sell then? And that's how my search started.
Yeah, and on that, we hear that all the time from sellers. A lot of what Wilson's saying, a lot of the exploration starts with what we find sort of the nightmares or staying up at night of inventory management, especially with a rapidly growing business. An increase of personal net worth being tied up in a business that can be, I mean, with Amazon, let's be honest, there's a lot of risks there, right? Where, Amazon can be Amazon and suspend you at will, stock out issues and various things on Amazon that can happen that can derail the business quickly. And so we hear a lot from sellers who say, hey, look, the business is outgrowing me. And once we hit that point, a lot of times, Wilson has a great story as to why he wanted to start the business, but a lot of times people will start it as sort of a side hobby, and they realize, hey, look, I actually don't want to, hire 5 employees and manage those people to take this from $1 million to 5 million to 10 million, et cetera. And so a lot of times sellers want to de-risk sort of their own personal balance sheets and move on to the next venture instead of trying to expand outward into various sales channels and retail, et cetera. Whereas sort of they leave it to a more professionalized group that has the infrastructure to do so.
And it's an interesting conversation because I used to have that mindset as well. If the business is doing well, everything is growing, why sell it? Why don't you just keep it? And one thing that I quickly learned is that the time to sell your business is when it's growing. That's where you're going to get the best evaluation. You're going to attract the most competition to buy your business. That's where you can get most value to sell your business. And I totally hear what you're saying, Kevin, in terms of the stress that comes with a business that's growing and the uncertainty of, I'm doing well now, but what happened if tomorrow Amazon does something? What happened if my logistics doesn't work the way I expected? What happens? And that stress, I totally relate to that.
Yeah, and Wilson, that's a great point. People always ask, well, when should I sell? I'm growing. If I just held on to it for one more year, I would make X amount. And that's where it makes sense to sort of walk through how much people are actually taking home when they're reinvesting into that growth, et cetera. And you're absolutely right, Wilson. At least with Thrasio, and I know a lot of other buyers in the marketplace get particularly excited about businesses that are growing but aren't past sort of peak growth, if that makes sense. And so there's still a lot more room to run. And that's where you see particularly healthy valuations come in. And you're absolutely right, a very healthy amount of competition amongst buyers for businesses. And I can just think of, the process we went with your business, certainly one of the more robust competitive processes that we've been through, and it makes total sense.
100%. I mean, you guys make some excellent points. I love the notion of the business outgrew me. And I don't think it could be understated because everyone wants to think about entrepreneurship through the lens of I'm making a ton of money in my sleep on Amazon, and no one's thinking about the sleepless nights while selling on Amazon, like you guys pointed out. So it's absolutely fair. And I think you guys were just hinting a little bit about the deal process. We'll get to that in a minute. Before we get there, though, I wanted to ask Wilson, take me back to, okay, you want to sell. Now, what was it like when you were choosing how to sell? Were you shopping around, looking at different, marketplaces, brokerages, options? Walk me through that period in time.
Yeah, my style, even the way I do business and how I operate in my life, is that I always take massive action. Sometimes it takes me a little bit to think things through, but once I decide the way to go, I just jump in. So in this case, as soon as I made the decision, do you know what? I'm going to see, first of all, what's the valuation for this business? And people would be surprised by the valuation that is being proposed in nowadays. And the first thing I did was, so I knew Empower Flipper brand. So I had friends that went through Empower Flipper before. Then it was a natural step for me to go to an Empower Flipper website. That is an online tool that helps you to get an estimate of an evaluation. Just be mindful that don't fake numbers, right? So you're going to get a fake evaluation. So put the right numbers there, and the tool is going to give you an idea of how much your business can be sold for. As soon as I saw the number, I was like, that's it. Let's get it done. Then I booked an appointment with Eddie. We spoke for half an hour, and the decision was made. Let's pull the trigger. So I didn't actually went to other brokers or any other. I didn't try to sell on my own. And I knew that choosing, and Empower Flipper has been in the market for quite some time, has a very success rate in terms of like the valuation and the pool of buyers that you guys have under your belt. So for me, it was an easy choice to go with Empower Flipper, and off we go. So I didn't actually shop around.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love that you were able to kind of find a solution and make your decision quick, take action like you were talking about. I guess to maybe sort of jump in a different direction, but while we're talking about the listing and the choice of coming to our marketplace, like I was curious, Kevin, from your perspective, what was it that, say, brought you over to us? Were you sort of there, gauged, ready, knowing that this was a great opportunity or place to find a business like Wilson's? Or, maybe paint me a picture of that relationship.
Sure. So we've had a longstanding, very solid, very strong relationship with Empire Flippers, dating as far back as when I first started with Thrasio in March of 2020 and before that. And so Empire Flippers has always been an excellent partner for us, being fair both to the buyer and the seller, giving excellent feedback, et cetera, and the ease of marketplace as well. And the consistency of the listings that come through has been a great thing, I think, for both parties. And so when we saw the listing come through where it fit within what I call our cubed philosophy, having really strong reviews, a review moat within its category, excellent product rating so that we knew the product was quality, and an excellent bestseller ranking and revenue concentration amongst a hero SKU or a hero ASIN. We knew that in addition to the solid growth trajectory that had been displayed over the past performance of the financials, we knew that it was an excellent opportunity for us. And we knew that, dealing with Empire Flippers, it was going to be a fair process.
And Kevin, I think you touched a few points that is very important for those that are thinking about selling their business. And if you're thinking about selling your business, here are a few things that I'd like you to consider. In my deal, what caught a lot of attention from Thrasio was, as Kevin just mentioned, is a listing that has a good reputation. It's a product that has a good reviews, authentic reviews and in numbers as well. So in my case was 5,000 plus review count. A product that is simple to manufacture. The process is simple. There isn't much intervention from the sellers. The product has straight line of production. So I wasn't manipulating the product. The product doesn't go anywhere before it hits Amazon. It's a straight process. So it's a simple business model. A product that dominates the category. So at the end of the day, focus on whatever niche you're in to grow your influence in that niche. So in other words, how many keywords are you ranked for? How many Amazon choices you have for the niche that you're selling? And all of that together builds this very attractive listings for the buyers.
I'm glad that you brought that up. It's interesting to hear that perspective from you two. It's something that we talk about all the time on our end, of course. We're trying to guide people as to, what are the expectations of, let's say, a 7-figure FBA brand. And one word that we were talking about recently is the idea of like a cornerstone business. And maybe thinking from Kevin's perspective, seeing Wilson's business, it sounded like all the nuts and bolts were there. This was a very special business, but it would be the kind of business that could potentially define a portfolio. And that's something that we try to make clear, because I think there'll be plenty of hopefuls who come through and go, well, my FBA business is making a lot of money. Wouldn't I be the type of business that, maybe all the aggregators would be interested in? And it's like, well, no, there's more to that puzzle, right? Like you've got to have those pieces. It's got to be a defining business. And that's a secret sauce. That's just not everybody.
And think about it. Think about the other end. So let's say you have $3 million and you want to invest $3 million and you want to buy a business. Let's say $2 million. So you have $2 million, you want to buy a business. Which business would you choose? One that has 50 SKUs, one that is manufactured across 5 different manufacturers, one that is kind of the third, the fourth in the niche they're in. Like, think about it. As an investor, you want something that is simple, is a turnkey, something you can buy now and operate and boast from here and have room to grow. And that's where sometimes as an Amazon business owner, we forgot to think about through the mindset of the investor. So the investor wants to see something that is simple to accommodate to their portfolio and something that is, again, in the overall process of your business, they can easily take it over and run with it. So sometimes as Amazon sellers, they have too many SKUs or they have too many moving parts throughout the business. that makes this whole equation, even though if the money is there, sometimes you're making the same amount of money, but just the hustle of taking that operation over can be a deal breaker for many buyers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. I can't tell you how many potential deals that I've had to pass on because of the complexity of the business as it pertains to, operations and supply chain and all that fun stuff. But also in addition, I think as the market has become more and more crowded with potential buyers with capital out there needing to make acquisitions, naturally valuations have increased. But also, sellers being realistic of what they do have. I can't tell you how many conversations we have where sellers are saying, well, we heard that you can get 10x in the market. We want 10x. And it's at best a very mediocre business, right? It's similar to, well, on a first call within 10 minutes, what would you pay me? It's sort of similar to, going to a car dealership, in my opinion, and saying, I have a car I want to sell you. What would you pay me? Well, do you have a 2001 Ferrari or do you have a 2000 Ford Focus?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it just makes for a much more difficult conversation because not all businesses or not all listings or brands are created equal.
Fantastic points, guys. You really hit the nail on the head. I think, like you said before, Wilson, it's sellers need to put the buyer hat on, the investor hat on, and if you're a seller and you've got certain elements of your business that you're not in love with, odds are the buyer's probably not going to be in love with those elements either. So you really do need to come to the table ready to have something that is worthwhile passing on to somebody else. I guess, as we talk about that in the business going live, I did want to get your perception, Wilson. What was it like kind of emotionally? Our businesses go live on Monday and your business is about to go up. And I would love to know what was going through your head at the time. What were you thinking and feeling? Did you have any expectations?
Oh my God, to be 100% honest, I was pinching myself to see, is that true? Because the way Power Flipper works, once you go through the evaluation, and Power Flipper does an amazing job evaluating your business and actually tapping into your Amazon numbers. So you cannot hide anything. You cannot fake numbers. So Power Flipper is going to go over and really do an amazing job looking at all your history and tap into your Seller Center account and pulling all the numbers and put a spreadsheet together. And there are a few things that you still have to feed the spreadsheet with because there are some numbers that they don't come from Amazon. But once you put the numbers there, and Power Flipper is going to look at it and say, okay, based on this evaluation, here's the rationale for how much we can ask for your business. Are you okay with that? As I go through that process, I was overwhelmed with the evaluation. If that comes to reality, I'll be happy. So the first day when I got the approval from Power Flipper saying, okay, we always posted on Monday, so next month is going to be your turn. I think that weekend I was thinking, okay, what the worst can happen? So we can put the business on the market and nobody is interested in, and that's it. I'll keep going. So it's not a big deal. But emotionally, it's very, again, when you put your house for sale, you always have that, okay, is anyone interested in my business? When live, I was refreshing the seller portal every 5 minutes to see, is people looking at it? Is anyone booking a meeting? And then fair enough, 2 days later, we had 20 calls scheduled.
Whew, 20 calls. I mean, what a moment, right?
And here's one thing that I don't understand. Even the Power Flipper was surprised with me because you have to put up a calendar for people to pick a schedule to talk to you. What I did for the next 2 weeks, I said, hey, from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., I'm available. I'm here to make this happen. And again, in 2 days, we got 20 calls scheduled. And when I saw that, I was overwhelmed. I was very happy to have the opportunity to talk to so many potential buyers.
So I wanted to jump in on kind of what you were saying there. I want to talk more about, all those buyer calls. I mean, just the incredible attention that you had on the business, Wilson. But before I get there, I kind of want to turn the tables to Kevin and talk about, of course, this business goes live on the marketplace and there's a ton of energy around it. I mean, you guys, you have to face that all the time, right? Where you see an amazing business and it's like, okay, we need an action plan. So I was wondering what that action plan looked like and how you guys start attacking due diligence in a way that is thorough yet timely for a really great business.
Yeah, Sarah, you're absolutely right. We see this a lot, particularly within the last 6 to 9 months, how the market has really accelerated in terms of competition. But really, for us, a couple of things. Even on the upfront side, before making an offer, what we want to do, if the listings and the brand look interesting to us, we want to get a general sense of, the growth trends of the business with the financials that we have on hand, taking a look at net margins, gross margin, as well as keyword ranking, keyword search term growth trends, things along those lines, just to get a general sense of, hey, look, is this something that not just on the business level, but also the category level, is this an area that is growing or declining sort of at a macro bird's eye view? And then from there, really, it just becomes conversations with sellers like Wilson and others and trying to understand what's important to them throughout a transaction. We certainly understand that every transaction is different and every seller has different motivations for that. And we try and meet those while also being disciplined investors, right? So we want to run the numbers and understand what our projected growth would be if we did X, Y, and Z. And would this valuation allow us to capture the yields that we require internally? And so it's a mix of obviously we're in a people business, right? In terms of dealing with one another, buyers and sellers, and getting to a mutually agreeable deal, but then also being disciplined investors and keeping that mindset on there.
Yeah, it's so great to hear your perspective. I like how you just said that, it's still human focused. I think as Wilson was hinting, it's like that energy and nervousness of you put your business up for sale and it's like, is anyone going to see the value in this? Like, this is my baby. And that can't kind of be undervalued in the process. Of course, we know there's an investment thesis that needs to be acted on, but there's that human element of, I want to make sure that I recognize this seller, that I see the value in what they've done, that this is their baby, that we would take care of it, we would be the best stewards. And so I love that you come to the table with that perspective and try to impress that upon the sellers that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could certainly understand where sellers might come to buyers and be intimidated or just think that they're going to slap an arbitrary multiple in front of their trailing 12-month SDE. And that may be true, within the wider scope of the industry, but I can only speak to Thrasio, where we really try and dig in and understand the story, both on the personal level and the financial level, because that, I think, ends up being the most important thing of understanding the business story, the personal story, and how we're able to get to a place where we become relied upon partners. And so that's really how we go into these sorts of conversations.
Excellent. Well, I guess, it would be a good time to switch it over to Wilson then. So, you've got all these calls, you're getting a lot of great energy, you're super excited. You've got Thrasio in the room and other buyers. Can you talk to me a little bit about, that process, the sort of offers that were being presented to you? I mean, were they more or less around like the same kinds of terms? And, what did it come down to when you were starting to choose and eliminate some of the potential buyers in the room?
Yeah. So one thing that I think going to be beneficial for those that want to go with Empower Flipper, what Empower Flipper does, they walk you through the whole process. So when you go to a meeting with potential buyers, you have an Empower Flipper rep with you there facilitating the conversation and help you navigate through the presentation, not helping yourself in your presentation, but helping to put the structure of the meeting in place. And that for me was amazing because he gave me, first of all, before the first meeting, I was asking Empower Flipper, listen, how is it? How is the call going to have, like, who's going to be in the call and how are we going to do it? And then Empower Flipper was like, don't worry, you talk about this, you can talk about that, and it's going to be fine. And that for me was very reassuring. And then you go for the first meeting, the second, and then by the fifth meeting, you're okay. It kind of like, you break the ice and you can kind of like understand, oh, that's the flow. One thing that's very important though, Empower Flipper has a very set of rules, which means when you go to that meeting, okay, this meeting is for you guys to know each other. Then this meeting is about the buyer putting the offer together and explains the offer. So it's very structured. So nobody can go in the first meeting and say, hey, take it or leave it. I'm going to pay you X and Z, and I want to pay this much. If you want, not. If you don't want, I'm out of here. So it's not like that. That was very helpful for me. In terms of the deal structure, it was interesting. So in our case, we did what we call the hold offer. So we went through a week of interview where the buyers were interviewing me, and they are coming to me and they want to know about the business. Kevin does an amazing job. Like in the interview, he goes through the numbers. He asks, like, as Kevin was going through the questionnaire, I was like, oh man, this guy, he knows what he's asking for. Like he knows what he's looking for. So it's very structured, like show me this and what about this and talk to me about the supply chain. The question that Kevin asked in the beginning of the conversation was like, why do you want to sell your business? And I think that question is very important because at the end of the day, not everything is about money. So some people want to stay with the business a little bit longer, depending on what is your motivation. Then we can talk about Thrasio's offer later, but I think Thrasio did a good job crafting an offer that I felt that it was personalized to my needs, to what I want. And that came out of that interview with Thrasio. But in terms of structure, at the end of the 7th day, so when we were actually open to receive offers, that was interesting as well, because now I'm asking myself again, okay, I spoke with all these people. Will any of them put an offer? And that's where we got quite a bit of offers. And then we were able to compare all of them. In terms of the structure, they were very close to each other. There was one offer that was a little bit different than the other, but overall, the structure was similar. The numbers were different though, but the structure was very similar.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed out how the process went, especially to sort of quell the chaos of a lot of buyers in the room. I'm sure without that process, it's probably going to get a little overwhelming to have a lot of people at you or, trying to give you some ultimatum in the initial calls. So I'm glad that you weighed in on that. We're trying to avoid that and keep everybody in line. I love what you were saying there about Thras. It felt like they were trying to create an offer tailored to you. And so as you were just saying, you kind of teeing me up perfectly here. It's like, all right, you had all the offers on the table and some of them were close together, like you mentioned. Like, what is it that pushed you over the edge and said, I see the potential with Thrasio, or they're giving me something here that I'm not finding with these other offers?
Yeah, at the end of the day, first of all, Thrasio came very strong in terms of the valuation. So they saw the value of the brand and they came through a strong evaluation. The biggest question that is in everybody's mind, especially when you're selling something that is growing, is, am I selling this too soon? Like, am I going too early to market to sell this business? Or should I hold on a little bit longer? What happened is there are mechanisms out there with earnout structure that helps you to answer that question. And I think Thrasio came with a very clever way to go around that. Because I was asking myself the same question. So what if I hold for another year? I may can sell for more. But there are ways that you can go around that and you can continue to participate in the growth of the brand. So that was one thing that Thrasio did that really came as a good surprise to me. And I thought, oh, that's a very clever way of doing it. Second, Thrasio had it's easy to find success story about Thrasio online. When you go to research and search for things, you can find those stories with other aggregators. Because of the nature of this business, everything is so early in the game. I couldn't find stories that I could relate to it. Another thing with Thrasio as well. And then there were some key elements within the Thrasio's team that I was very key on, that I liked the way they were doing. I liked the people that I would be working with. And all of that together made Thrasio's offer way more to stand out from the competition.
Well, I guess to turn it over, to Kevin, what are your thoughts when you hear that, for you, made you guys want to go ahead and put an offer that you felt like you really believed in? I guess to wrap it up, it's like, what really made you believe in this brand and the future growth and the potential of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think in this brand in particular, it boiled down to two things: the state of the business as it was at that time and belief in Thrasio and what we've been able to do in the past and our wider portfolio and the opportunities that we would be able to implement going forward. At the end of the day, I sort of view my role as being an investor in these sorts of businesses, right? And so can I sit here and say, this is an excellent opportunity at the time of evaluation, and that this should drive us returns and get more products into people's hands and make sure that we're keeping in line with the real sort of nature of what Wilson tried to build and expand upon it and do well by him. At the time of evaluation, and still now, I would say yes. I think that this is an excellent brand that has a bright future ahead of it. And so it boils down to the past performance of what Wilson was able to do prior to acquisition, the strong trajectory, the strong fundamentals of the business, getting back to that R-cubed philosophy of reviews, ratings, and ranking, and then the belief of the Thrasio capability in our infrastructure boiling down to teams and systems. And so with that, it becomes one of those things where buyers that are looking more for the long term. And so we're not perfect and we're humans and there could be bumps along the way, et cetera. But when we look at brands, we're not looking for the next 3 months, the next 6 months. We're looking for year 1 to year 5, 10 down the line, both our larger parent company business, but also for our brands. And that is sort of the mindset that comes through when we think about making offers and get excited about brands.
I love the way that you just put that together. I mean, that strategy, I think it goes without saying, is, why Thrasio is where it is today and why you guys have been just so well known and a leader in the industry. I love that basically the two of you were able to come together after your journeys and, Wilson being able to pass along your business to someone, you're going, okay, all my time and investment and my heart that's been put into this, I can trust that this buyer is going to take it to the next steps. Like this is probably, the best hands that I can put this in. And like you said, it sounded like you were in a kind of an earn-out system where you could participate in the upside potentially. And, there was room for you to still be connected in a meaningful way. I guess, when we're talking about like, now we're in the stage of, okay, the deal has happened and things are closing up. Wilson, how has your life changed now that you've exited your business? That's probably a big loaded question, right?
No, yeah. And everything, again, it's fairly new. We literally are talking from August. So we're like 2-3 months in this new world. There are a few things that happened to me. One is that I feel that a lot of a heavy load was taken from my shoulder. So I can wake up in the morning and I don't have to work on customers' emails. I don't have to look what the competition is doing. I don't have to worry about all of that. So it gives my supply chain. Is my inventory still sitting at the port in China? Or what is the price of oil? So I don't have to worry about many things. That was very refreshing. That was a big change for me, that I can wake up in the morning and I'm very organized in terms of what I do with my time, what I do with my agenda for the week and all of that. But now I can craft my life around things that I'm most interested in. And I'm here in this meeting today because I chose to be here, because it fulfills me to be here. And that's an amazing feeling. I felt that I can now kind of take ownership of my life in a more meaningful way. A lot had to do with the fact that, okay, when you sell your business, to let people know, there is this upfront money that is the result of your business. That is what we call the cash up front. So when you sell, there is some earnouts that comes later, but that cash up front is the money that you have. There is no question. It's in your bank account, it's yours. The earnouts, there are some risks involved. And after I sold the business, I now can think and organize my life moving forward and craft the way I want it to be. Definitely gave me a lot of freedom. And there are a few things that I wanted to achieve that now I can achieve them. But for me, as I was sharing before the call, so my daughter now is looking for university and she is applying to go to university next year. And it's an amazing feeling to look at her and say, listen, you can pick anyone you want to go and I'll be able to support you. So this feeling alone is overwhelming. Also, one of the main reasons why I started my Amazon business is because I always wanted to support my family, my mom, my parents, and my in-laws. And having the ability now to go back and tell them, I'm here for you, don't worry about it, I will support you. The day I got the payday when I exit the business, That's when I made the call and I told them, don't worry, I can support you. And that for me was the biggest moment so far in my life.
Wow, that's simply incredible. That's the things that we certainly try to say distill, for those who are thinking about selling. That's an option, right? It's the idea of freedom. It's a new level of choice and meaning, like you were saying before. I'm curious, Kevin, it's probably nothing new for you. You probably hear this from sellers often, but I mean, what's it like for you hearing that and knowing you're on the other side of ownership for this business? So does that feel kind of full circle for you?
No, I mean, it absolutely does. And I've told Wilson this before. He's one of my favorite sellers that I've worked with, particularly because of that reason. Being as open and candid has been about, the impact selling a business has for him and his family. For us and for me personally, it makes the job worthwhile. I sit here and, not to be flippant, but we do deals week in and week out, and we look at different opportunities, et cetera. And I think Wilson said this when we actually signed the term sheet. At times it can feel like it's just numbers, right? But I also want to be painfully cognizant that even the most seasoned entrepreneur might sell their business 5 times in their whole life, or a business 5 times in their whole life, most being once, maybe twice. And so it is a life-changing experience, not just for them, but for their family, et cetera. And so that's something that I personally try and bring to the table every day, of showing up and being attentive and being as helpful as possible, because for some, it might be another transaction. For others, it could mean the world. And so that's something that it absolutely comes full circle, and it is personally a great thing to hear.
That's so awesome. I love to hear that. And, Wilson, it really is meaningful to hear your perspective. It's always so great, I guess from being on the other side of it. And, we're watching transactions happen every day, buyers and sellers, and you don't always get to hear the why. We do hear things like freedom and more meaning, but for you to kind of put 2 and 2 together and be like, I can make that phone call to my family. I can tell my daughter she can go anywhere she wants for school. And yeah, I think it just brings it to life in a way that for those out there who might be considering selling and they can't quite make what an exit is in a tangible way, it's those things. It's not the numbers like you guys were saying. It's the ability to say yes to things that absolutely are closest and dearest to your heart. So I'm so happy for you that you got that outcome. And certainly Kevin and Thrasio, you guys get to be a part of that every single day. We love to think that we're watching that happen through our marketplace every single day. So yeah, it's feeling real. I like that for anyone out there who was thinking, yeah, I don't really know about this. I think Wilson and I, we were talking about this offline. Like, is this stuff real? This whole like exit and change your life stuff.
Exactly. There are a few things I was concerned as I was going through the acquisition process. One was, will Thrasio at the end of the due diligence kind of like lower their offer? Like, what is the catch? So I was always through the process thinking, is it true? First of all, can we list for that amount? Yes, we could. Will anyone be interested to pay that much? Yes, there were. Now I'm going through the due diligence process, and I was like, is it possible that at the end of the due diligence process, Thrasio will come up with an excuse and say, listen, but because of A, B, and C, our offer is not that, is something else. Did not happen. They fell through what they offered. And then when they said, okay, let's go through the due diligence, I was like, okay, maybe it won't work then, or maybe, okay, it worked. And then came that one call where Thrasio's rep said, listen, we want to put an offer, like we're going to close this deal. And I was like, is it true? And then we closed the deal. Then we went through lawyer, and you have it, got the contract signed. And I was still thinking, okay, will they deposit the money? And then the time comes and my lawyer says, Wilson, I think it went through, so have a look. And then you refresh your bank account. And I'm still staring at the bank account thinking, is it happening?
I like that you said that you didn't call your family until like that all hit, right? I would have been right there with you.
Exactly. And then we all went through it. And then I saw the numbers and I was like, I've never seen that many digits in my account before. And then off we go. So now let's talk about like what are we going to do with the resources and where we're going to deploy and how we're going to work. But it's a real thing. And one thing that I want people to know is this. It's a win-win-win-win situation. Thrasio bought an amazing brand. I sold an amazing business. And Empire Flipper was the glue that made this deal possible. And I would pay a broker any time of the day because the work that Empire Flipper did for me, and I'll be forever thankful for what you guys did. Again, from doing the evaluation, from facilitating the negotiation, from being with me throughout the whole process. And I definitely could not have done on my own, definitely. Or if I had done, I doubt that I would get the results that I got because there are so many things through the process. One of them is that is very hard for one person to do on their own. One thing, just to illustrate a little bit, the day we were picking the winner for the offers, Empire Flipper put a spreadsheet together with every single offer lined up side by side. And I had in one call myself and I think 7 or 8 people from Empire Flipper and like all the Empire Flipper reps and the sales team. And we were all talking and we are all going through, okay, offer number 1, Wilson, this is how it looks like. Here's how it compares to offer number 2. This is how it compares to offer number 3. This is how it compares to offer number 4. So there are a few things here. One, I don't think I would contact that many buyers if I would do it on my own. Second, I would have no way to compare the offers and understand, okay, this is how this offer compared to the other because everything was brand new for me. Just that process alone is worth the commission that Empire Flipper is charging, honestly. Because that work and all that preparation, the fact that I had someone that was kind of a shield me throughout the process, and I like that at the end of every single call, the buyer would look at Empire Flipper rep and say, okay, where do we go from here? And then they would say, okay, now we're going to do A, B, and C. And I love that aspect because I could just stand by and then see the negotiation moving. And also, I'm sure that behind the scenes, buyers were talking to Empire Flipper and they were going back and forth, communicating. And I was shielded from that. And then eventually, when you look at the overall, I'm very happy with my exit. Very, very happy. Thrasio is very happy with the brand they acquired, and I think Thrasio is going to grow this brand tremendously. I think Thrasio is going to make it a 3, 4, 10 times bigger than what it is today, which helps me with my mission of what the brand was. Because at the end of the day, any product and brand is solving a problem. So Thrasio will help a massive community to solve a very pain point for them in a scale that would take me way longer to get there. And Empire Flipper is happy of the whole negotiation. So it's everybody wins in the process. And I think this is a very successful story for sure.
I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate your kind words, Wilson. I'm sure when sales hears this, it'll mean a lot to them. Obviously, most people don't get to see behind the scenes and know what it's like and basically to know what person power goes behind the deals, even on our end, for example. Who are these people at Empire Flippers and how many people are working on my deal? And I think your deal illustrates, the kind of the power of making sure that you've got the exit team behind you to make sure it's going to go the right way, especially when you've got a cornerstone business, you've got a lot of demand. How do you navigate that on your own? So again, thank you for your kind words and pointing that out. It's certainly meaningful for us to get your perspective. But overall, guys, it's just been so cool to just have both of you on the line and to be able to talk about both sides. It's not something that we get to do very often. I've loved this back and forth of, sort of building on your perceptions, even the emotions in the deal process. Sometimes gets missed out, right? When you're maybe writing a piece of content and it's just, the deal exited for this and that happened. But you guys have brought this life to a deal in just this totally new way. So appreciate both of your time coming on, being willing to pull back the curtain and share what exactly happened.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, always happy to do so.
Thank you, guys. Well, enjoy. I can't wait for our audience to get a hold of this. I think they're going to absolutely love it, really resonate with a lot of things you guys said here today. And yeah, looking forward to getting your stories out to the rest of the world. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've walked away with a bit of new insight that'll help you in your digital entrepreneurship journey. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To learn more about businesses available for sale at Empire Flippers, click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.